It's been a while. But we had a bunch of forest fires here. And we were in the middle of a show. And we get the evacuation call. Well, I mean, wasn't quite as big as it is now, but I mean, there were still, I don't know. There had to have been 100 head on the place, and you got some cattle, and you got dogs, and you got cats, and you're moving a whole ranch. And so I jump in the rig, and I head the show was in Castle Rock, fortunately, which is only about 25 minutes away. I come home, I grab a set of horses, I run them back into the fairgrounds, and by the time I had gotten back, so let's just say 45 minutes, the place was cleared out. All the horses were gone. 2 loads of hay were gone. The cattle were taken over to another pasture. Just, Jolene said, as soon as I left, it was just like there was a line of trailers just coming in the driveway. And she just was standing there, taking names, taking places where the horses were going, keeping it all organized, and boom, it was gone.
You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
Welcome to The Ride, a podcast brought to you by Horse and Rider Magazine, hosted by Nichole Chirico. In each episode, we chat with some of the industry's top trainers, clinicians, horsekeeping experts, and professionals to share inspiring stories, training philosophies, and the importance of living your best Western horse life. In this week's episode, I sit down with Devin Warren of Warren Performance Horses. Devin is a reining professional who's built a program that touches nearly every corner of the performance horse world. From the breeding operation he and his wife have developed together to producing open-level horses and supporting a thriving non-pro community, everything they do is rooted in family and a true love for the sport. Whether it's helping a client chase big goals in the show pen or welcoming someone just starting their journey, Devin's approach blends high-level horsemanship with a supportive, down-to-earth environment that makes people feel at home. We talk about how it all got started, the importance of balancing performance with longevity, and what it takes to run a family-focused program at the top levels of competition. This week's episode is brought to you by Purina. You know what it's like when folks get real loud over a horse in the heat of competition, cheering like it's overtime, because it's not just a horse, it's your obsession. And when your horse is your teammate, you'll do anything you can to make sure you both perform at your best. Purina, we've spent decades meticulously designing nutrition to help make sure your horse is at its best. Get the performance-proven, research-backed supplements your winner needs at purinamills.com/horseperformance. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Ride. This is your host, Nichole Chirico speaking. I am here today with Devin Warren of Warren Performance Horses here in Colorado. Devin has been a very big part of the industry in so many different ways, whether it's competing in the open division, working with non-pro riders. He has this insane breeding program that has just flourished over the years. So thank you so much, Devin, for sitting down to talk with me. You are a busy man.
Thank you. We always just try to be learning and having fun. So these things are awesome.
I love that. Yeah, no. And our listeners are always appreciative of anybody who will come and sit down and talk with us so that they can just learn more about the people that they've just looked up to in this industry. But for those who might not be familiar with the reining industry, can you talk a little bit about your background in the horse industry? Did you grow up in the horses? You know, what was your journey to the reining pen?
No, I mean, I was one of those crazy kids that, we lived out in the middle of kind of the mountains on stuff. And so we had no TV, no anything, obviously internet wasn't done for all the young kids and don't know how to get away without their cell phones. You were just riding horses. My mom had a small breeding operation, kind of showed like back in the Buckskin Association, but we never had the kind of the high dollar national quality stuff. So kind of grew up doing the 4-H, and I'm just kind of the personality that whatever I do, I tend to push. So there was a trainer by the name of Troy Hikes who had Jack's Electric Spark, been in the reining. At the time he was here, but he was about an hour and a half from us in order to get any lessons or, that part of it or get better where I could be more competitive in that. At the time, the 4-H was a very, very competitive deal where only, 3 seniors, 3 juniors, you had to qualify to go to state fair. It wasn't just, where everybody got to go kind of mentality as it was now. You had to take written tests every horse show. It was a whole different system than what we have now when people think of the 4-H deal. But so trying to get an edge up on anybody, it was an hour and a half down the mountain and to his place. And so after some lessons and stuff like that, I started working for him when I turned 16 and I could have my driver's license. And so I'd work for him for 5 days a week at the ranch that he was at, Pine Run Ranch down in Black Forest, and then worked my 6th day at the lumber mill up in Woodland Park. So I had enough gas money to get back there because I was only getting $40 a week from him. And it just kind of, I worked all the way through high school, and then worked there 2 years after I tried a year of college, and just decided the ranch management program was teaching me how to be a farmer, and I was just not where I wanted to go. And so I started working for him full time. At the time, I worked at the ranch for 2 years solid, and then he left and moved to Oklahoma City. The ranch there asked me to take over as head trainer, and then during that time, I had met Jolene, my wife, and we had gotten married. And I worked as head trainer there for 2 years, and then we went out on our own and moved up to the facility that we've had here. Lordy, what have we been here? 24 years now. Leased it for 7, 8 years, and then we're able to buy it.
Was there ever like an aha moment on like, this is what I'm supposed to do with my life, I'm going to be a reining trainer, or like, was there like any kind of thing that stands out, or did you just always know that you wanted to be involved with the horses?
I mean, I just always got along with the horses, kind of. It's one of those things that, I loved like designing things, and so I tried commercial, taking classes in college as far as commercial art, some architectural stuff. Honestly, I looked at the military, special forces, just something always pushing that part of it. But the horses always drew me back because it's a new challenge every day. It's a new, it's just not I love a creative process, whether it's, working on a wood lathe or, some of those other things, just seeing something come along, and that part of it, whether even if it's people learning and riding and seeing them grow and seeing them follow their goals from the first few times somebody comes out. And there's a lot of times I talk so much psychology and so much that it can go over somebody's head, but I just love the part of it. So once they kind of get the idea, a lot of times from one of my assistants or something, of the foundation of the program, we can just dive into the psychology of things and watch people grow and watch things create. And I mean, it's just watching people on that journey, and, have, before I understood the whole people part of it, watching the horses just get better. And I don't know, there's just something oddly satisfying with that.
I think that's fantastic though, because, it's not always so easy for a horse trainer to be able to, when I'm doing this podcast, a lot of people will be like, I don't know, I'm really great with the horses, but I can't explain to people what I'm doing, or I'm really good at explaining to people, coaching. And so it's really special that you're able to have such a diverse program where you are training those open level horses, but you also have a huge non-pro program as well. I was at your barn on Friday, and the amount of people who were there in the middle of the day riding, you have a busy arena.
Yeah, it's a horse show every day.
I love it.
And I mean, I'd have to remember what year it was, because I started out in the paint horses, when Troy worked at that ranch at Pine Run Ranch, they had, Chickaverse and who had been the super horse in the paint horse deal. And so that part of it, and the industry was a little different than it is now. It's so specialized now. I mean, it was starting to get a little bit more specialized back then, but when you go out on your own, you have to figure out how to pay the bills, how to eat, if you don't. And I mean, there just wasn't. So I learned to ride Western riders at a very high level. And, my love was always the reiners, but pleasure horses and helping gals with showmanship and horsemanship. And, we went through that whole stage, keeping your little stash of reiners in there, and, but there's an article, it's something Jolene and I had always did. It was always going to be about the people. We feel like God, when we were able to buy this place and that part of it, there was always a part of the program that was about helping the people. Especially the youth kids. There's so many lessons that can be taught with learning how to win and how to lose and how to communicate with something that thinks completely 100 different ways than you do. We go away from pressure as a human. They go into pressure. And if you can learn to communicate with a horse and be a horseman, what a great leader you can be. What a great, human that you can be. And the better I've gotten with the horses, the better human it's made me. And it would be a shame not to share that knowledge.
I love that. And I was a youth kid. I came from a training barn like that. And I also learned a lot about just, being held accountable and taking care of an animal and all of that stuff. So I love that you're trying to be accessible for youth riders who are trying to get involved.
Yeah. I mean, we've just kind of always tried to give back a little bit, as times have changed, where you spend your time. And, so many parents try to use it as a babysitting tool. Well, the kid really doesn't want to, but, be there. So you're not going to be able to have that same touch into their life. But the ones that just crave it, love it. I mean, we will get so creative to be able to get those kids, time, and whether they come out and they trade out with me or they, however they have to do it to get them out and be able to help them with that passion, we do it.
I love that. Kind of going on to Warren Performance Horses. You've told us a little bit about how it got started. You are now a reining focused barn, but you cover a lot of different aspects of the reining industry. We've already kind of touched on some of those. Can you talk a little bit about your program and how it has changed over the years? I mean, obviously non-pros working with youth kids, that's still a very big priority for you guys, but you have so many different things going on.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely, grown and changed and done some of that. But the fun part is as the program has grown and gotten bigger, the core foundation has stayed the same. So having it be about the people and there's so many of the people that are still here from where there was the all around days or they've changed disciplines and now we only do obviously the reiners and we're breeding for the reiners which all started, because you couldn't depend on at the time, we're up here in Colorado, the non-pro and that part has always been the kind of the core of the industry up here. And so having horses that I could ride and, generating horses for me in the open program, we started with the $500 mare by the name of Fajita Bonita. And now, all the way through where, I think, Jolene told me we have 65 signed contracts for next year and we have 30 some foals coming this year. And so many of them out of, level 4 finalists or $50,000 in earnings and, all of the great prodigy, but it's just it's so fun because, I mean, people walk in the barn and, I mean, there's customers. I mean, I'd say 85% of my customers have been with me over 15 to 18 years. And so they've all grown and, adapted and, gotten into the breeding, and then they, and it's just a whole big family part of it, really.
It's a testament to your program as well to have clients stay for that long. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty cool. I mean it's with having them there, and everybody kind of helps the program in their own little different ways. You obviously have doctors, you have lawyers, you have pharmacists, you have have people that are just, they love to garden, so they come out and they do the flower beds, and everybody has their niche. Like we were away on vacation 2-3 years ago, and one of my assistants fell, and horse fell on him and broke his foot. And I didn't have a ambulance come out and get him. I had that, and I got a call, and they're like, I can't believe you did that. That guy's worked for you forever. You didn't even take care of him, and you didn't have an ambulance come out. And I'm like, okay, let me give you a timeline here. I said, you don't understand how my program works. I said, everybody knows something. I said, okay, so he fell down. I said, within 10 minutes of him falling down, there was an anesthesiologist looking him over, whose husband is an orthopedic surgeon. She was in the arena with him. I said, within 20 minutes of that happening, he was in at my chiropractor's getting an x-ray. Within 10 minutes of that x-ray being taken, he was the x-rays were looked at by 3 specialists and 2 general surgeons. 45 minutes after that, he was back home in a cast with his prescription being prescribed to him at home by dosage by my pharmacist. Tell me where I didn't take care of him. I said he would have still been sitting in the emergency room.
He'd probably still be in the waiting room.
Yeah. I'm like, that's how we take care of it, Another one needed his shoulder scoped. Well, one of my orthopedic surgeons got his whole, staff to donate their time. It cost him $1,500.
Oh my gosh. You've built a community. It's not just a training barn. It's not where someone goes to take their weekly lesson. You have built a community.
Yep, pretty much.
I love that.
And so, anytime anybody needs something, and so they've all just grown. I mean, it's so fun, because we have several different programs within it, whether you got the Ratcliffes with theirs, and, and they've, Gunacacia that Storybrooke Farms owns, and the one that Trevor Dare was really good at the Congress on this year. Why am I blanking? The Bay, Baldface. Oh, crud. He was reserve at the Congress on it. That came out of their breeding program. Those are all mares that we rode here and helped them with their breeding program. And, they moved, twice just to be closer to us. They had moved from Wyoming then to Woodland Park, and then they were still too far away, because they're about an hour and a half, and they moved again to be 10 minutes behind us, so that part of that community and another customer, moved up from Durango to be 10 minutes from us. So she could have her breeding program enrolling, and, Diana Kenyon and, Grace Wins. And so then that part of it, Garth Highstead, all of his breeding operation is here now. And, so he had Mega Mag and Big Gulch X, who's produced 280 some thousand now. All of those kind of moved to be part of this community when we got going with stuff. And, it's pretty cool to see that part of it come together. And it's been a huge blessing from God, just opening doors and moving things around and moving parts around, and just seeing how it all, comes into play. And then, like with, Customize My Dream, I never thought I'd have a stud, but then here all these owners are with all these great mares that we've built over the last, 20 years, and they're jumping on board, and, I think we'll have 17 of them. They have 17 signed contracts just in the barn with him.
That's incredible. Okay. So with such a large program, such a big community, obviously there's some big challenges that come with such a large operation that operates in so many different parts of the reining industry. I know you and I have spoken. You said your wife Jolene was traveling thousands of miles each week just to get the brood mares going. And I mean, it is literally everybody has a job to keep the wheels on the bus.
Yep. Yeah, it's I mean, that part of it, obviously, the organization and that part of it, without Jolene, I'd be sunk. I mean, that part of it, is where she is just really, really strong with that part of it. And, the biggest thing that helps with those challenges is that we do have this community. Is that, something comes up, trucks break down or somebody gets stuck, or we can just make some phone calls and everybody comes running. And the horse community is a little bit like that anyways, but I think we've been blessed to be able to take it to another level. And so that, if, whether it's, something's always happening, something's always breaking, something's always that part of it. But when you have those people behind your back, whether you need a doctor or a vet or, whatever, a mechanic, somebody's always there to help you. And I think that's the biggest thing that helps us overcome the daily challenges on everything that we do here. And, it's so cool to watch people come in and, kind of find their niche in the program, and they just see a need and they start filling it. And it just helps it run so much smoother.
That's fantastic. The community is such a cool aspect to it. I've seen a lot of different barns. I've been to a lot of different barns, and to have that kind of community is pretty special and pretty unique.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the horse deal is, pretty big community there, but I mean, I don't remember. It was 10 years ago. It's been a while, but we had a bunch of forest fires here, and we were in the middle of a show, and we get the evacuation call. Well, I mean, wasn't quite as big as it is now, but I mean, there were still, I don't know. There had to have been 100 head on the place, and you got some cattle, and you got dogs, and you got cats, and you got, you're moving a whole ranch. And so I jump in the rig, and I head the show was in Castle Rock, fortunately, which is only about 25 minutes away. I come home, I grab a set of horses, I run them back into the fairgrounds. And by the time I had gotten back, so let's just say 45 minutes, the place was cleared out. All the horses were gone. 2 loads of hay were gone. The cattle were taken over to another pasture. Just, Jolene said, as soon as I left, it was just like there was a line of trailers just coming in the driveway. And she just was standing there, taking names, taking places where the horses were going, keeping it all organized, and boom, it was gone.
Wow. So I'm from the Midwest. I'm from the Chicago area. And when I moved to Colorado, wildfires were a very new experience for me. And I wrote about this in one of my ed letters because I remember evacuating a bunch of horses in Longmont. I was riding cow horses at the time up in Longmont. And I remember watching horse trailers drive straight into the fire. And I was like, this is incredible to see because everybody else is fleeing and there's traffic going the opposite direction. People are parked on the side of the road gawking. And then you just see these horse trailers going directly into the line of fire to go get those animals.
Yeah, it's that part of it. But to have that, sense of community, around, but then to try to take it to another level, at the barn,
Yes.
it makes it pretty cool. I mean, even if, every Friday, every Saturday, usually at least one time during the week, whether a customer's coming out for a late lesson or whatever, she just brings pizza for the staff. And, one guy always brings breakfast burritos for everybody on Saturday mornings. And, it's just, it's the normal thing here. And I don't think I've ever seen anywhere that it's kind of the same, as far as on that level of it. And, it makes, there's times that you can go, oh, I just want some space. But in reality, it just, all those challenges are running everything. And, hey,
Yes.
you can't get this one, to the breeding barn this week. Okay, well, I'll just run it up there, because Jolene was, 1,000 miles a week. Every flush that we did, she spent about 6 hours in the truck because it was an hour to the south to have the mare. They just, the vets are here pretty much every day during breeding season. And between breeding, we have 2 vets, between the breeding and the soundness and all of that. But the one to go get the mares inseminated is 45 minutes to the south. Well, so they have to run them down there so they can make sure they're ultrasounding them, if, every couple hours if we're doing it frozen semen or, cooled semen or whichever it is. And then, so you got an hour down and, probably an hour back if you're not bringing something back. Then you got to go down and pick them up 48 hours later, take them back up. And then you got a 2-hour drive to the north for the flush. So then you got another 4-5 hours on the road there. And, you figure there's 30 some surrogates sitting out in the pen this year. And you average 2 flushes per surrogate on average, and that's a lot of miles and a lot of driving and a lot of coordinating. But
Yes, that's thank goodness for your wife because, oh my
yeah.
gosh, that is a full-time job all in itself.
Yeah. And then we also have a great Leah Rohr that's in my office, and she is, everybody laughs because they call her my second wife because she comes out and tells me, nope, that's not on the list. You're not doing that. Because I'll see plenty of squirrels. I'm a little bit that way. I'm like, oh, something shiny, cool. And, she's always keeping me on task. And so she's another big asset. And they have a big cattle breeding part of it. And so she's used to that part of it. And so she's very good at, Devin, you're getting off task. Pull your head out. And I'm like, great, Leah.
Thank goodness for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So between the 2 of them, they pretty much keep me on the straight and narrow. Most days, if I step out of the arena, something happened, a horse acted up or they needed help with a surrogate. I'm like, the emergency, when they pull the alarm, I got to come running. But other than that, pretty much they keep me in the arena going on horses all day long. And,
And there's plenty for you to stay busy with just staying in that arena all day.
yeah. Yeah. I usually take a couple of snacks and some, water and that, and then they'll bring me something for lunch. But I don't usually, once I'm step in that arena, usually 7:30, 8 o'clock, I don't step back out until 6, 7 o'clock at night.
Well, I witnessed this firsthand on Friday. And you had so many non-pros of so many levels, just in and out doing lessons. You're riding 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds and everything in between. But can you talk a little bit about what you're hoping riders to take away when they have a chance to ride with you? I had a blast with some of your non-pros that were there. They are so funny.
Yeah. And that's the great thing. They've just they feel that same sense of community. And so they're very welcoming. They're very, because the biggest goal I want, in reality, I really want them to be better humans. But if they're learning and they're having fun, the success will come. And so if we can, do something, whether like Fridays and Saturdays are half social, half learning, depending on whether you're a visual learner, audio learner. Sometimes it just, you see somebody else struggling with the same problem that you had, and you get to hear myself or one of the assistants talk them through it. The light bulbs turn on. And so part of it is that my non-pros see as many squirrels as I do, and trying to get any of them to show up on time and keep a schedule throughout the day. Your lessons at 1 o'clock. Well, you might be done in 30 minutes if your horse is great, but if your horse is being a kind of a pill and we need to stop and let it air up and do this stuff and then work through some stuff, we might be there for an hour and a half. You might start a lesson with me or Madison, or start one with Madison or Jose, and I step in because you're having trouble and we work through some things. And so the schedule is like non-existent as far as that part of it. But there's also that part of that is the fun that you get to have seeing somebody else be successful or have that part of it, and then you're like, okay, I'm getting it. But I just really want them to be better horsemen, better people, and enjoy the process. We try to stay to the schedule as much as possible, but I'm not going to be so strict that they miss that experience and miss that opportunity to learn a little bit, stay around after their lessons, watch somebody else, and try to learn and take away as much as you can.
I could have sat on a horse in that arena all day because there was one thing going on in one part, somebody else working on something totally different. You were riding one of the young ones. I mean, it was really cool to be able to just sit and like soak it all in.
Yeah, I mean, it's my poor guys. I mean, once they get those 2-year-olds out of the round pen, I'm like, I can't promise one of the non-pros isn't going to come down to a rundown or said, everybody needs to have their eyes up because, they're trying to work on this. And those poor 2-year-olds, they get broke pretty quick to the traffic and people running up and down. And it's just, especially on, Thursdays, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I mean, it just and everybody seems to come out at the same time, see their horses. I just run a very open program. There's some guys that are very, very structured. You got to call to see your horse. You got to call to see that. Well, yeah, if you want a lesson, that's fine. Let's call and schedule it. But I'm not going to keep you from coming and seeing your horse and interacting with it and being part of it. So I've always had a very much an open door policy.
Horses are too expensive to not enjoy them.
Yeah, tell me about it. That is for sure. And
it's why we do it, right?
Yeah,
we love it.
Yeah, there's days Jillian and I go, oh, we're so tired, but then you go out to the baby's pen or something like that, and it's just a rejuvenation of everything.
So we've talked a little bit about the breeding program, but we haven't actually talked much about your mare Gonna Be Custom, who is almost at the $1 million dam mark, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it's getting pretty daggum close.
You started with a $500 broodmare, and now you have worked your way up to one of maybe a handful of mares who have reached that $1 million status. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, she was the number 5 mare this year for production. I mean, she's at 753,000. And I think we have 6 or 7 in the pen.
Oh my gosh!
So,
how did you come to get her? Did you have her in your training program? Like, what's her story a little bit?
Well, I mean, that's just it's not a short story, that's for sure.
Oh.
So, I mean, we originally bought her from Tam McQuay. And I mean, we paid a lot of money for her as a yearling. I didn't. Garth Heisted did. And he was the one that also had big hold checks that, when we started a lot of the breeding stuff, I would try to go out and as things evolved, when we went from that $500 mare up through, and I had leased a Gonna Trash, not a Gonna Trash, it was anyway, it was another customer's mare. And we just kind of grew, and Garth had come in and seen it, and, one of his first ones that really hit was Mega Mag, which Casey Hinton won the level 3 at the Futurity. And I mean, Nancy Moxley owns it now. And I mean, it's still going strong as a 10, 11-year-old. And so he got, that was one of the first ones we had put that hit the national scene from the breeding. But Garth had bought this one as a yearling, and then she fractured her hock as a 2-year-old and never got to show. And Garth, just being part of that community, went through a very ugly divorce. And he's like, I can't pay you for this. Will you take this mare as trade for my bill? And I'm just like, oh, that was such a hard hit, for us, financially, just to wipe that bill clean. And it's just, she's blessed us tenfold over. I mean, you take a mare that, yeah, she's really, really well bred. I mean, the whole bottom side of that mare is, you know, just so big, and, you know, all of her siblings have done well and, that, but, you're wiping this debt clean, but it's what, we did. He was always part of the community, and he's going through a horrible time, and we try to take care of it. We're just fortunate enough that God blessed us with her and taking a chance. That was one of Jolene's feels, because at the time he said we could have the mare that produced Mega Mag, and so she had already produced well over 100,000. And Jolene's like, I don't know, I just have a feel on the, you know, on the mare going to be custom. And she's like, I think that's the one. And I'm like, I never got to show her. She doesn't have a record. She has one foal on her side, and we're going to do that. She's like, yeah, I think that's the one. I'm like, okay, let's go for it. And, the first, and we got the one that we sold to Casey Hinton, the bald face one that he showed and run for the million twice. It failed its first vet check. And, the people found some stupid little thing that, I don't remember what it was. It was an odd shape in the stifle, or I don't even remember what it was now. But, the vet was like, well, that's just really going to hurt resale. And we're like, Garth, I like him enough, I'll buy him. And, I rode him and tell the youth world his 3-year-old year when Casey Hinton bought him from me. And then that was the first one. And he made the finals that year at the Futurity, and then came back and won the level 3 at the Derby. And, that one's now won like 189,000. So that was, one of the first ones that I sold out of her. And then obviously the one that I gave to Casey, he took him over Tulsa of his 3-year-old year. So he had it 60, 90 days before the Futurity, and the reserve at him. He's won 236,000 so far. And then the next year we did it again. I did the same recipe with that one. And that one ended up 7th, and now he's won. Both of them qualified for the Run for the Million the next year as a 4-year-old. That one's won 279,000 so far. And then the next year we came back. Casey took over the mare he wanted a little earlier, so he took it at NRBC. She made the level 4 finals and then kind of banged a leg. And so that, but still, she still won 37,000 as a 3-year-old. So she was the highest placing mare at the Futurity this year. So that's been pretty cool. There was, most of hers have pretty much hit. There was a little Joe Cash that just never got shown, didn't get a chance, just got hurt. And then there was another one that banged a tendon as a 3-year-old. It was a in like Flynn, but he's starting to come back, and we got him back in the program, and I think he won 6,000 last year. So she's just been a great mare.
I'm a true believer, and sometimes things happen for a reason. It sounds like there was a reason that this mare ended up in y'all's hands.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Garth, has been able to rebuild his program, and he gets to still enjoy that part of it. And then his mares, I mean, he still has that big gold checks who, produced, 230 some thousand now. And he has another, mare that, is HF Call Me Rhonda that is, level 4 finalist. And, he's putting all of those back behind William. And, they're going to make you love me. They're going to trash a mare of his that's won 43,000. And so it's funny how the Lord kind of plans these things, and, Garth building all these mares and us building these mares. And it's funny when you look at them that how before we even, because the stud game was never one that I had done it for customers and that kind of stuff with some other horses and that part of it, but I'd always focused on the mares. And then all of a sudden this mare of ours produces a great stud, and now between all the customers and myself, we have the mares to back him. And not only just mares, but really good mares that have great show records already. And like I said, I think we have 17 contracts just in the barn, to him. And that's, it's funny how that all just starts with one little mare with a fractured hock.
That's
you
wild.
know, and that part of it has just been an incredible blessing, and just trying to use what we have that God has given us to the best of its ability.
Absolutely. Customize My Dream. We've talked a little bit about him. So you said that he was at Casey's for 60, 90 days before the futurity.
Yep.
So how did that all come into play? It's obviously it works, because since then you've had Casey ride some of the full siblings to this one.
Correct. I was down at Tulsa. I was going to show him down there, and I was just talking with Casey and stuff, and asking him about some training questions, and I'd kind of bounce stuff off of Casey before, because our programs and our psychology are pretty similar. How we ride, just with the guiding, with the just very minimalistic as far as what we do, as far as our training styles. And so he's like, well, what are you doing right now? I'm like, well, I got about 2 hours for a paid warm up. And, he goes, well, who's the paid warm up on? And I told him, it was on William. And he's like, well, I don't have anything going on right now. Let's go get him and we'll warm him up and I'll help you out on him. Great. So we go get him, and he watches me for a minute, and, I do my transitions. I do the turn. He goes, mind if I hop on him for a second? And he goes, I think I can feel some things, but I just want, before I tell you, I just want to, feel it. And sure. He gets on, starts tweaking a couple of things, and asks him to turn around, and that sucker hits another gear. I'm like, he goes, you just needed to move it over an inch or two. Oh, well, that looked pretty daggum good. He goes, it felt really good. Huh. He goes, you mind if I circle him? Nope, go for it. So he goes and circles him, nails his first two transitions. He goes, mind if I stop him? Nope, go for it. Goes down, hits his first three stops, bigger than Dallas. He comes over, and I said, that horse looks like you need to show him. And he's like, it's kind of funny, because I was thinking the same thing. And, he ended up getting cut at that show, so I had to have some stitches, and I couldn't show him at that show. And so he went, I just like, well, the stitches will come out in a week, on his hip, and I'm like, just go and take him home, and if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. And I'll meet you at the fraternity and I'll show him. He calls me back and he's like, this horse just feels like you made him for me. He goes, he feels like he's been in my program the entire time. And so we went back and forth, and, I'm sending him videos of me showing him at the summer slide, and he's asking questions on, how I did certain things as far as my lead change program and trying to simplify that. And so he takes him down to the Southwest, and he goes, well, let me just lope him through a novice horse class and see. And I think he cruised him around to a 74. I mean,
Cruised him.
yeah. I mean, it's just like, he's like, holy cow. And I think, I don't remember what he was, at 27 and 28 in the futurity there, won the futurity there. And then, that part of it, and then even at the futurity, the horse, he doesn't need a lot of riding, and he almost does better when he's really fresh. So, we pull in on Monday, Casey and I showed it the first day on, I think, Wednesday. So we figured out we'd each have 2, maybe 3 rides if we needed them before he showed him. Because I had one the same day, the first day. And so he goes and shows, does really well. He's like, he goes, I have a gut feel I just need to send him home. Okay. So he sends him home. So the horse goes from the first go, he goes and sits at home and just goes out on the walker, out in the in the paddock, and sits at home, brings him back up the day before the second go. Rides him 1, 2 rides, and then second go, and then he just didn't have time to take him home. He goes, I'd really love to take him home from the finals, but I just don't have, he goes, it's not, conducive to spend the 5 hours on the road, each way, before the finals. So I don't remember. I mean, it was less than a dozen rides that horse had between being shown and everything all week. And,
That's incredible.
He spent over half the time gone from the show.
And for this is a 3-year-old for those who might not be familiar with the word futurity. Like, this is a 3-year-old that hasn't shown more than, would you say, one other time before this?
He showed Summer Slide and Southwest.
So 2, twice.
Yep.
Now, I'm sure you were taking him to horse shows before you took him and showed him, but like, still, to have a horse that's still so young in its career to be able to do something like that, but also that it says a lot about you and Casey and listening to what your horse needs and not what you guys might need, and just doing what he needed to be ready. And I love that.
Yeah, I think that's, both Casey and I really try to listen to the horses. And I mean, Casey was awesome as far as listening to me on what I did with the horse, where I did with the horse. And it's really been an awesome thing as far as our 2 programs learning to work together and, doing it now multiple times on, I mean, everything from, what Casey was doing farrier wise, some stuff vet wise, bringing that into some of my program. Casey, really liked what I had done on some of the lead change stuff, and he's adapting, some of his lead change program there. And then us constantly talking back and forth. Hey, we got this supplement that we found, like when William came home and rested, okay, this has been really good for his digestion. This has really helped with the ulcers. This has really helped anywhere in the programs. Our 2 programs talking back and forth has been really, really great, and trying to elevate all of us as a whole. And that whole sense of, I don't know if you want to call it community or that, between, trainers that are competitive. I mean, we're very competitive and everybody wants to win, but then, he's always been really great. If I send him a video, what do you think on this one? And then, now that he has also bought the 3-year-old as a yearling, now that it'll be, one that he has that's gone through his program. And he's like, okay, what did you do at this time if they were doing this? And, it's been that horse has brought so much more community, more change, more opportunities, more that I never thought. And then God just keeps opening the doors and moving things around. And he's just and then clients here jumped on board, jumped on with their great mares, and buying mares now as yearlings and 2-year-olds, going, oh, this one, when we get this one shown in the next 2 years, this is going to be a great cross back on William. And you're just like, holy cow, this is snowballing. And just seeing everybody jump on board, I never thought in my wildest dreams I would have that. And then, the 2-year-old this year, I almost hate to talk about him because, he's a freak.
Oh, is this the one you were riding when I was there?
The big buckskin?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
He is a freak.
That thing has 15 rides.
That's I was riding with, for those listening, I was riding with Devin's assistant Madison, and I literally like stopped what I was doing just to like watch you ride him, because I was just like, what is that?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. Yesterday, I just started teaching him how to kind of step her over. And so I've done that. I'm so big on the shoulder moving and moving the front feet that they guide, and I get that guide, but then, when you actually kind of ask them to cross over a step or two. And so it was the third day that, the first couple of days, it's like 2 steps at most, And then yesterday, the third time I asked him, I was just kind of there one-handed, and I was talking to somebody. I said, you just need to think front end around the back end. And I just went with my hand, and I'm just riding in a little cotton, hackamore. And he just started one-handed, head went down to his knees, and he just stepped over 3 times. And I'm just like, holy Dinah. I looked up at Jolene, I'm like, did you just see that?
Oh, what a cool feeling to be on something so athletic.
Oh, yeah. It's just that you sit there and you're like, Jolene's like, that could be your once-in-a-lifetime horse.
That's
that's
awesome.
I already thought I had my once-in-a-lifetime horse with William, and, it's just, that mare is just, it's just incredible.
Now, do you find that you have several that are full siblings to Customize My Dream? Obviously that cross works. Why fix something that isn't broken? But do you find that they all ride pretty similarly when it comes to like their mind and just like how they like to go around, or are they all kind of different?
They have little tweaks and little different personalities, but they just all want to please. None of them
winning cross.
Yeah. Just none of them have wanted to be there. Like Jolene brought in one of the now yearlings, and we call it a Colorado Bath, but it's one of the blowers from the cattle industry, when they come in, and, you got all those yearlings out here. The Texas guys and the Oklahoma guys, they get that little bit of hair, but
yes.
Yeah.
We have woolly mammoths.
Exactly. Well, yes. You give a yearling a bath when you're trying to take pictures or somebody's interested in it or whatever. You're 2.5, 3 hours of sitting and letting it, dry. And it's horrible. And so on the young ones, they've never been in a stall. They've never been in. And so she brings in one of the yearlings that we needed pictures of, hits it with a blower, and it just stands there and just gets its hair blown everywhere. Most yearlings kind of go, holy cow, what are you doing? This thing's just like, hey, I'm in the barn. I'm cool. I'm here to get my pictures taken, and it's just like, she just stood there and let us do everything. And you're like, you just want to be a show horse. And
that's cool.
That's the way the sister was last year. Jolene, when the first time I took her on a trip, because I don't have stalls for all of my young stuff. They still live in group pens until they're almost 3 for the most part. And so I wanted to take her to Tulsa for the ride and slide. Well, I think it was 13 degrees and snowing and 3 o'clock in the morning. And she hadn't been on a trailer since she was weaned, with the vet stuff going up and down the road. I threw her in my trailer, took her down to Tulsa, threw her in a stall, and Jolene's like, are you trying to kill her? And she just jumped right in the trailer, went down there, acted like a show horse. Everybody teased me because I'm riding my woolly mammoth around the show. I'm like, it's fine. You guys won't be teasing me come November.
Right. Talk to me in November and we'll see who has the last laugh.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And
That's there's nothing cooler than just like having a horse that just they just want to do it, and it's
yeah. And
such a cool
that's so. I
feeling.
mean, and that's the way they've all been. I mean, they each have their little quirks, or some are a little stouter, some are a little bigger, some are a little smaller, but they all want to play the game.
So kind of going off of that, obviously you're probably still going to be doing that cross in the future, but what else does the future look like for Warren Performance Horses? You guys just continue to, like you said, it just kind of continues to snowball, and like new doors just continue to open. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's it's just that part of it is awesome. Just the mare power that's coming in, and just Garth buying more horses and stuff that we have bought. Like there's a Walla Walla Whiz 3-year-old that is out of Blonde with an Attitude. That you know, Blonde Attitude won 46 or 64,000, and Little Miss Attitude won 111,000. You go down, and she's produced 812,000. Well, I mean, that's one that we had bought a couple of years ago, but it's a perfect cross on William. And when you go back and you look at what was bought and created, and that part of it to breed to him, like there's another one that Garth had bought. Oh man, we bought the one from Mandy. It had like 18,000 on it when we bought it, but it was my darling's not painted, and so we have a Spook's Got a Whiz out of her. That's won almost 50,000 now. Still has a Derby year left. Her mother won 50,000. Her first one, is that one. Darlin's Not Painted has produced 800 and some thousand. And all of these ones, I mean, these mares have been in the pipeline for, most of them were bought as yearlings. So they've now in the pipeline 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And when you look back and you're like, holy cow, God, you have been working to set this up from the beginning.
Yeah.
And they all just cross so incredibly well, with William. And, Spence Bell just had one that was a Mile Starlight daughter, but it's a Spook's Got a Whiz out of Mile Starlight. That last year, when we bred it, and he's like, I really like the stud. I like that. Can you work me a deal? So I'm like, yeah, I'll. It had like 3,500 in earnings on it. Well, that mare now has over 26,000 in earnings in 1 year.
Wow.
And the non-pro. And
Wow.
the baby is just incredibly gorgeous. And he's like, yep, I want more of these. I would love to be able to tell you I know where God's taking it and what I'm hoping in my plans and my dreams, but he's already surpassed so much of what we thought. I have no clue what God's going to do in the future.
Absolutely.
Because you sit back and you get a little time. It's so easy to get so wrapped up in the day-to-day stuff of, we have probably about 200 head on the place. And the day-to-day operations and the running, and so-and-so got a nick, and so-and-so, has a snotty nose, and oh my goodness, this one needs to be here and that one. And it's so hard to sit back and go, holy crud, God. You see the plan and you see it all come together, and you're like, who gets to be the next one to come in? No different than, when Doug Mulholland got hurt last year. And, Brooke calls me up. She goes, Dad's hurt. He has this one horse that's, really nice. He's kind of green. He's kind of, there. But I think Dad has a great, incredible foundation on him. Would you consider showing him? I said, well, I'd kind of watched him at Summerside. I watched him in Idaho, and so I run over to the Western Slope and put him through a little futurity over there. And there's just something about that feel of that horse. And, I'm like, Doug, I think I was 72 and a half at this little futurity. And I had, I don't know, 4 or 5 rides on him before I showed him. And I'm thinking, I kind of know how Casey felt now. You start feeling this, you just feel this horse there. And I'm like, Doug, it's just going to be a matter if he can run fast enough and get comfortable going at that high rate of speed. I said, he fits me. He gels with me. He understands. And Doug's like, yeah, he just needed somebody a little bit crazy like you that go all over the place.
That's cool.
And,
no, that I watched your ride at the fraternity. It's a cool horse.
Yeah. And so it was almost reverse of what Casey and I had done, except Doug and I got to do it. And so Doug would come in the early mornings and watch me ride him. And, through the futurity, he just got better and better and better. And Doug, came to me. I mean, it was before the finals night. And we had prayed over the horse and that. He goes, I think my second plan was always God's first plan.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, you were meant to ride him. And there's something about that, if we can stay the heck out of the way, God can do some really cool stuff.
Yes.
It's just really hard for us to stay out of the way.
Yes.
Especially us, squirrel seeing control freaks.
Yep. Yep. I can understand that very well. That's incredible. I have taken up way more of your time than I told you when I kind of tried to coax you into being on this podcast. So before I let you go, where can people find you? I know that you guys have social media. I know you have a website. Where can they learn a little bit more about William?
Yeah, you can just look up Customize My Dream on Facebook. He has a website, just Warren Reining, Facebook. I don't understand it all, but I'm told that's where you can get the best way. Just you can reach me on my cell phone. If, my cell phone's up on everything as far as the social media and that part of it. Send me a text. I try to not miss many texts, but just give me a call.
Yes.
The best thing is just do that. And, I pretty much try to answer most of my phone calls that come in through the day. And I'm a little old school that way, but just, come out and enjoy it. Whether you're looking for something, you just want to sit and watch the arena, it doesn't matter. Like I said, it's all kind of about the people and, what that community has brought to our lives is pretty incredible. And we just like to give back as much as we can.
Well, this has been probably one of my favorite podcasts. I have just loved learning so much about your program and you and it's so refreshing to talk to someone who really just loves this industry and the things that have happened over these last whatever years it was as everything snowballs. It's just so cool to watch. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yep, anytime. It's knowledge is meant to be shared. It's not meant to be hidden.
I love that. Coming from someone in the media world, but also coming from someone who relied on magazine articles and YouTube videos and everything in between to continue learning. So I'm so appreciative of that.
Oh yeah, not a problem. I read many a Western horseman over the years.
Awesome. Well, thank you again.
Anytime.
Once again, we'd like to thank Purina for sponsoring this episode of The Ride. Thank you guys for tuning into The Ride podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and please be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow Horse and Rider Magazine on social media and find us at horseandrider.com to see all the cool things that we're up to. And if you have any comments or questions, please be sure to hit us up at horseandrider@equinenetwork.com. We want to hear from you guys. And if you like what you're listening to, please be sure to leave us a review on iTunes.